Yo, what is going on, guys? Good morning. Good morning. How are we? I hope you are having a beautiful day. Starting, what are we? Hump day over here in Canada. I'm bloody getting confused being all over the world at different points in time, but we're here, Wednesday Hump Day. And for you guys, Thursday. I hope things are cracking on. What is going on, guys? Good morning. It was really frustrating yesterday when we did the live with Nikki. None of my comments were coming through for some reason, but I can see them here this morning. So we're going to get started in this episode in 2 minutes. Hello, Tez. Good morning, mate. Hope you have a beautiful start to this morning, my legend. Lovely to have your company here, buddy. Guys, get into those comments and let us know you're coming in to watch this one live. I'm here to deliver some value for you this morning. And we're going to be ready to rock and roll in 2 minutes. What's going on, guys? How's your week been so far? Hey, Ghosty, how are you, my friend? We're starting to get a bit of a follower base in YouTube as well. Some 15,000 subscribers over in YouTube. So hello to the YouTube audience. Hello, Kevy. Good morning. Or it's not for you, brother. It's evening for you. Guys, we're getting started in 1 minute 30. Yeah, Ghosty, really good, mate. Hey, Toddy, how are you, mate? Lovely to have your company. Kenny's in here as well. Look at all the UK crew. I love this. Guys, we're going to be kicking off this episode in just over a minute's time. And this episode is going to deal with this idea of why, while we know that fat loss is simple, why is it that so many people struggle with it? And the theory here is that if we talk about why people struggle, then we're more aware of it, then we're better able to deal with it. Does that make sense? Hello, Nuke. Lovely to see you in here this morning, brother. I hope you've had a beautiful, fresh start to your morning, buddy. I've got to say, guys, as we count down to the start of this podcast in 1 minute, it is so good to be back in Vancouver and just kind of have my office space and be super pumped to deliver you guys some value and some coaching. I don't know if any of you have struggled with like crazy levels of jet lag before, but the last 2 days I've literally spent spewing my guts up, and it's been the worst. Trying to nurse babies on a plane and not getting any sleep yourself, I do not recommend. So we do digress. Let's get over to the scene, and we're going to count down. I think we're ready to rock and roll straight away. So, who's ready? Guys, if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to do them in the comments, and we're going to get started on this episode on the count of, as we bring in our TikTok audience, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about why fat loss is dead simple. It is so freaking simple. But why losing weight is hard. That seems to be a contradictory statement, doesn't it? Fat loss is simple, but losing weight is hard. We're going to go into the details during this episode. Now, if you aren't already aware, we recently opened a free transformations group as a little bit of a thoroughfare to our main program. I haven't put the link in here, but if you search inside Facebook for Weight Loss Transformation Academy, you will find the group. Just join there, answer a couple of questions, and we'll get you on your move. Now, if you've listened to this podcast long enough, okay, if you've listened to this, you would have repeatedly heard me say this statement. Fat loss is simple, but losing weight is hard. This is episode number 183, and I reckon I've mentioned this in every single episode. What do I actually mean by this? The science of fat loss it's like, I think people, when they start to research for their own journey and they start to Google and they start to YouTube, what ends up happening is they get really, really confused because it's an overwhelm of information. Okay. And if I dip back into those sources and I start watching a bunch of YouTube videos and I start watching a bunch of stuff on TikTok and Instagram, I personally get really confused. There's so many people trying to show you these little hacks and shortcuts. The reality is, fat loss happens when you are in a calorie deficit. Okay? It's that simple. If we control for your calories, you will lose weight. There is absolutely no question about that. And so, people say, oh, but I love keto. You might love keto. The reason keto works in the short term is you're in a calorie deficit. And you might say, but I want to be a vegetarian. Okay, great, do that. The reason being a vegetarian works is because you're in a calorie deficit. It doesn't matter what the situation is. This said, even if we are in with the knowledge that a calorie deficit is what causes fat loss, adherence to that calorie deficit is difficult. Why is that? That is because you guys are not robots, okay? You are humans with emotions and ingrained habits and tendencies, and you're influenced by your environment. You guys know exactly what I mean. So today, I want to break down in quick format 10 reasons why it gets hard. And then I want to outline what you should do about it to overcome these hurdles and be successful despite the fact that there is these challenges that we need to go through. Now, if you're a client of ours, I want you to listen up because the take-home message is going to be clear. There's a couple of things you need to do, and if you're not doing these two things, then you're really not following the plan. So let's go. Number one, what are the reasons? So 10 reasons why, although fat loss is simple, losing weight is difficult. Number one is because it involves breaking old eating habits. Excuse me. Overweight people have typically developed unhealthy eating habits over time. This is not being critical, but what's happened is over time, we've just started to adopt some things which we didn't necessarily set out to do that have become habitual. Maybe it's overeating, maybe it's emotional eating, maybe it's consuming a bunch of processed foods, and this is hard to break. So when you're trying to do this on your own, you're trying to, navigate your own journey, it is really, really hard to break those habits because you're essentially saying, I'm going to use my own willpower to overcome myself. And so when someone says to me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to try one more time by myself. It's like, you've tried 17,000 times by yourself. Why all of a sudden would it start working just because you're going to go at it another time? The issue is not that you don't know what to do. The issue is implementing what you're trying to do. So the first reason that it's hard is trying to break your bad habits is difficult. Number two is consistency. Sticking to some form of an eating plan or an exercise routine consistently is a challenge, especially when you have all of the responsibilities that you have in your life. I mean, think about all that you've got to deal with, right? You've got family, you've got finances, you've got your work or your business. All of these things are quite often very, very important that you deal with them as soon as possible. So what tends to happen is once you get one of those things pulling at you or something that screams the loudest, it takes away from your attention and it makes it really, really difficult for you to be consistent. Number three is lack of motivation, right? Like, who feels this one big time? Lack of motivation. I'm really good at getting started. Like, I'm a serial starter. I'm crazily good at getting started. But in terms of keeping going, that's my struggle. I always say that in a fat loss journey, people have three main issues. They don't know how to eat, they don't know how to train, and they don't know how to stay motivated. All right? Motivation is such a struggle for so many people. Losing weight, it requires some level of effort and dedication, which can be hard to maintain if you feel like I just go through these wavering periods of motivation and I don't have the discipline to continue. Number four, what makes it difficult? Despite the fact that it's simple, what makes weight loss difficult is emotional eating, or for that matter, stress-based eating. So many of us, as in like the majority of us, turn to emotional eating as a comfort. When we're feeling down and we're feeling stuck and we're feeling like, man, that was a really difficult day, it's almost like very natural for us to go home and treat that emotion or stress with food, because food makes us feel good. So when we're stressed or we're anxious or depressed, we don't stick to our healthy eating plan because of the fact that even though we know it's calories that we need to get right, we just feel like we deserve this. You know what? I've had a really tough day, so I'm going to treat myself. Who's ever been in that habit loop where they say that thing to themselves all the time? It's like, I've had a really bad day, I deserve the ice cream. It's our brain playing these crazy tricks on us. Number 5, okay? 5, I'm going through the 10 reasons why, despite the fact that fat loss is simple, most of us struggle. Number 5 is that we have cravings. Big cravings, like massive cravings. Food cravings, especially for, unhealthier or very high calorie foods. This can be a significant challenge in your weight loss journey. Has anyone ever craved like chicken breast and broccoli? Of course they haven't. Generally, food cravings go hand in hand with emotion and stress being high. So what happens is we get the emotion or the stress, which is the trigger for us. Then the craving that follows that is usually for a food or alcohol that sends us off track. And even though we might be really, really good over a period of time, what ends up happening is and I've got a comment here from TikTok from Jared, I love this, sitting here eating a Lindt chocolate bar, I think TikTok's algorithm has gone too far. I love that, dude. And that's exactly right. Like, we get these moments of weakness where all of a sudden this emotion creeps in, and then we imagine, hey, you know what? I'd feel a hell of a lot better if I could just answer this craving. Number 6 is that we've got time constraints, right? I don't know about you guys, but I don't know a single person that says, you know what? Like, I've got oodles of time. Like, I've just got time to burn. And so what ends up happening is, with busy family and work schedules, finding time to prepare healthy meals or fit in our exercise can be a little bit of a struggle for a lot of people, particularly if it hasn't become habitual for you yet. If it's not second nature to you, it's really difficult to implement. What I see is that the guys and girls that are successful in their transformations are the ones that are in it for long enough that doing the thing that they've been trying so hard to implement, eating healthier, being active, starts to become almost second nature, right? It's not as if they are trying really hard. There's a bunch of people that are watching on live here, and I'm starting to think about the types of people. Let's take someone like Kev Grant watching on live. The reason that fat loss, and to the effect of, upwards of 25 kilos for Kev, the reason that that's happened is it's because it's become ingrained in you. Like, it's not as if you are Kev trying really hard to lose weight anymore. All of a sudden, the habits that you've been trying to implement for a long period in your life have become your life. You're no longer a guy that's trying to do a bunch of things. You're the guy that just does those things. Does this make sense? This takes a lot of time. All right, number 7, we're talking about the 10 challenges here, which makes fat loss difficult. Slow progress. Losing weight is often really difficult, and particularly as we reference men versus women, sometimes women compare against their partners and start to get really frustrated when they're in a transformation together and the man is losing weight quicker than the woman. This happens a lot of time because of the fact that the metabolic rate is higher for the man versus a woman if you compare various, keep the variables consistent between the two. What tends to happen is men lose weight quicker than women. That's just the way it goes. And so what happens is it can become really frustrating when your progress is slower than what you want, and super discouraging actually for a lot of people. Would you agree? If you come out and you lose kind of 5 to 10 kilos in pretty quick succession, but then what happens is that you hit these fat loss plateaus and it just starts to slow down, and you don't have someone to guide you through that process, it can be very, very frustrating. You start to think that, you know what, like, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not meant to be a healthy weight. And you start to blame your genetics and rationalize away things. The reality is sometimes you're going to go through these periods where your fat loss is not linear. All right, that comes into number 8. It is very, very common for plateaus to happen. I've literally just done a reel and a TikTok on this to explain that fat loss plateaus are not a sign that your metabolism is broken. They're not. It's actually the opposite. A fat loss plateau is a sign that your metabolism is actually working. How? How is that possible? Well, because if you're entering a fat loss plateau, this is your brain and body's way of making sure that you don't continue to lose weight at the trajectory that you've been at. Otherwise, you're at risk of dying. If you lose weight so quickly, the problem is if you're entering a fat loss plateau and you've got no guidance and you're just sitting there getting really, really frustrated and demotivated, you start to think that you're doing something wrong. It's actually not that you're doing something wrong. It's completely normal. And what we need to do is work out a strategy to get the fat loss moving again. All right, number 9. I think this is one of the most difficult ones. And this is that there are social pressures. What do I mean by this? Well, we don't exist in a vacuum, okay? We've all got friends, we've all got partners, and sometimes it's the people that are closest to us that enable us, that are the ones that are actually like, they almost don't want to see us succeed, because if we were to lose a bunch of weight, then it almost feels like we're moving away from them. But vindictiveness aside, it's just difficult, right? We don't exist in a vacuum. We go to parties, we want to have a life, and any fat loss plan that is built upon you not living is a stupid fat loss plan. It's dumb. The reality is you can restrain yourself for, 2 weeks, 2 months, not go and see anyone, live in a hollow and no social circumstances at all. But the moment that you go back to doing the stuff you used to do, the weight's going to come back on. And so what we've got to do, when people say to me, I don't want to start my journey just yet. I want to start in 3 months' time when I'm back from my holiday and the wedding's over and I have 6 months of clear space. Like, that's a silly approach, because if your fat loss plan only works when your life is perfect, it's a terrible fat loss plan. That's not going to last. So social pressures are a challenge. And then the 10th reason that although fat loss is simple, weight loss, sustainable weight loss is difficult, is because often there are mental health challenges that are inherent in a fat loss journey. What do I mean by this? Well, going back to the fact that we emotionally eat and we eat when we're stressed, often the reason that we've become overweight, and I'm thinking of a couple of people here that are watching this live, feel free to put your hand up and say, yep, that's me. They've put on the weight in the first place because they struggled with depression, anxiety, and other mental health stuff. Whether it's trauma that's going on in your life, or whether it's just a certain moment where you had a bunch of things going on that have caused a whole lot of anxiety in your life and you treated that by emotionally eating, this is the reason that you've put on the weight, and it's become difficult to maintain calories because you've got these struggles that are going on between your two ears. So above, we've listed the 10 challenges that you're going to face on a fat loss journey. Okay? So the question remains, how do you overcome these challenges? What differentiates the people that are successful in their weight loss efforts? What differentiates the people? Why is it that some people are able to break through, lose a substantial amount of weight and maintain it, and the people that can't? Well, the inevitable bumps are going to come up, okay? What is it that throws us off? This is where I believe we need 2 things, okay? To be successful, we need two things. And I'm going to give you those two things right now. Number one, we need a simple plan. Okay, we need a simple plan. One of the things that frustrates the shit out of me about the fitness industry is this. I can create you the most detailed plan in the world, the most perfect plan in the world. But if you don't follow it, then it's useless. Would you agree? I could give you literally, here's what you need to do at this point in time, every single day of the next 6 months. But if you don't follow it, it's pointless. But if I can give you a simple plan, something that's simple to execute, something that you can bring into your life without it feeling like a hell of a lot of friction, is that more likely to work than something that's tremendously detailed? Of course, the answer to that is yes. And so the second thing which I believe we need is some support and accountability. What do I mean by that? I think I could give you a simple plan and I could give you, I could dumb it down. I could give you a meal plan. I could give you a workout plan. I could help with your mindset. But unless that there is an environment for this to take place, this change to take place, it's going to be a struggle. And what I mean by this is I could send you a PDF and say, here's the perfect meal plan. It's calorie controlled. Just go and do that. The reality is you'll probably do it for a little bit of time, but then you'll fall off. You'll fall off because there's no accountability and very little support when one of those 10 things that I talked about comes up. The emotional eating, the trauma, whatever it is for you, the busyness of your family. So what we need in a good program, a successful program, we need a simplicity and we need some support and accountability on the way. And this is the two pillars of which we built our Better Body Academy plan around. When I see people going off track, it's because they stop following the simple plan that we've given them. To our clients, that's the trifecta system. We have a hashtag in our group, don't we? FTFP. What does it stand for? Follow the fucking plan. We should be constantly thinking, if I follow this plan, the plan will work. And if you keep coming back to the simplicity of the plan and stop listening to all this stuff about supplements and garbage on the outside, if you just follow the plan and be consistent with the plan will work. And the second thing that they do when they start to fail is they stop utilizing the accountability and support that is available to them. Okay? If you're one of our clients, what I'm talking about here is you start going into your shell and you start doing things on your own. I have never seen a successful person in life that achieves that success on their own. Never. I am the first to say that I've only got success when I asked for help. So this is a call to action on two levels. If you're not in BBA and you're struggling to lose weight, it's likely that you don't have an actual plan. You're just kind of taking it day to day and doing what feels right, and you're spinning your wheels. And even if you do have a plan, it's probably likely that you're executing on your own, and it's easy when you feel motivated, but it's very hard when you feel things like life comes up. You're trying to do it by yourself, and it's just so difficult. Now, if you are in BBA, look down this, guys, I'm talking to you, and you're one of our clients, and you're not making use of the things that are available to you, your huddle calls, the Facebook community, the squads, the coaches, you're essentially saying, you know what? I can do this by myself, which is contrary to the exact reason that you actually started with us in the first place. You put your hand up because you wanted some help in the execution, you wanted a simple plan, and you wanted some help with the execution. So if you go away and start trying to do this by yourself, you're effectively saying that you know better than the plan, which is kind of frustrating. Get back involved. Guys, we are so passionate about seeing people lose weight successfully and keeping it off without these bullshit supplements, without these unsustainable plans, without these overly restrictive diets. You don't have to do that, right? There is a way to be successful in weight loss, which involves simplicity and a little bit of support and accountability on the way. And if you just stay connected to the process and stop this rhetoric in your mind that oh yeah, but it's difficult. Look, it's difficult if you try to do it on your own. If you stay connected to the process, I really do think that it will change the landscape. Guys, this has been the Better Body Academy podcast. I'm sticking around to have a conversation on Facebook with anyone that wants to play around here and kind of ask some questions or make some suggestions. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, team, good morning. How are we? As I promised, I really want to kind of use these post podcasts as an opportunity to reach out and, ask, is there any questions that you're struggling with? There's 12 people watching live here at the moment. So let's kick off a discussion, guys. There's 12 people watching live. What is it that you're actually struggling with? I went through a list here. Thanks, Kevy. I appreciate the feedback, mate. And if there's anything that you would love me to talk about on the podcast, please suggest it, right? Because I would absolutely love to be able to help you guys out in any way that I can. If that means sending me a topic, which you're like, Jace, could you do a topic around this? I will absolutely do it. Now, I can't see who this is, but I'm just going to read out the comment. Me, yesterday morning, around this time, had a meltdown as a few things happened. I was angry and thought, fuck it, I'm going to go to Macca's and buying 2 brekkie meals. As I got closer, I changed my mind and got coffee, sat by the beach for 45 minutes to calm down. Gee, that's so good. And you know what? It's really like, I'm never going to pretend that I'm perfect at this stuff. Like, never, ever, right? What's the biggest source of my frustrations? Probably 2 things. Number one, I'd say my kids, and I love my kids dearly. Like, I love my kids dearly, but they're frustrating sometimes, right? And it's hard to channel your frustrations in the right way. The other thing that frustrates me is I have very high standards, and when people that I work with don't meet those standards, that frustrates the hell out of me. So 2 sources of frustration for me, and I have to be very mindful of how I process that frustration. If I go home and start to, punish myself with alcohol or food as a way to let out that frustration, I just know that it's not going to end well. It's Kaylani. So beautiful Kaylani. I think this is a really, really good example. Let me give you a little bit of a tip. Okay, when it comes to processing your emotions, okay? There's something called the 10-second rule, okay? The 10-second rule works like this. When you have an emotional reaction in your body, actually what happens is you have a release of the flight or fight hormones, okay? These flight or fight hormones like adrenaline and cortisol start rushing into the blood, okay? But the effects of those hormones are actually short-lived. So after about 10, 20 seconds, the initial burst of those hormones is gone, right? It's had its impact. It's got you into flight or fight mode, but then actually those hormones are dissipated. They've gone. So why is it that you continue to feel frustration and anger over and over again for what seems like an hour or 2? It's actually our mind. It's not the action of the hormones. It's actually that we choose to keep triggering ourselves with the repeated thoughts. Does anyone get this? Like, does anyone feel this? I know sometimes when I have a frustration at my partner, as an example, I get that initial of hormones, which is like the flight or fight thing. Then I notice that they're gone. And then what I'll actually do is almost like, it's like a poor me attitude. Like, I'll want to act like a baby to make her understand how I feel. So actually I'm choosing to stay in that state. So it's actually like it's coming from maybe my ego. Does anyone do that? So come on guys, there's 13 people watching live. It's where like we don't feel heard. So we decide to kind of stay in a shit state because We want our partner or our kids or our boss or our employees to understand that we're really, really disappointed in them. And so we're choosing to stay in that state. Yeah, Kev says, all the time. I'm trying to change it so I'm less reactive. Yeah. It's a really difficult thing to do, Kev, because it requires a level of destruction of your ego. It requires you to go, you know what? Like, I'm not going to continue to react. It requires awareness. So what do I mean by awareness? We have a mastermind program that we run for our more advanced clients. By the way, who'd be up for a mastermind starting soon? Claire says, yeah, I'm a stubborn ass. I get that totally, Claire. Hey, guys, I'm thinking about running another mastermind soon for men and women. Separate, of course. Let us know if you'd be up for that. But one of the things that we talk about in the mastermind is we need to get really good at becoming the watcher of our thoughts, right? Or the watcher of ourselves. So I want to give you like a visual here. So I'm going to pretend that I am not doing this podcast and I'm doing me working away in my day. What you've got to get really good at if you want to become less reactive is observing yourself. Okay? So here's me right now. I want you to imagine I'm coming out of my body and I'm back here and I'm now just observing myself and observing how I go about my day. When you become the watcher, as we call it in the mastermind, when you become the watcher of your thoughts, you're able to kind of see some patterns in the way that you react to things, right? You're able to see every time I have that trigger, I do that thing which I don't want to do. Jen says, breaking the bad habits is hard for me. As soon as I'm stressed or tired, I go into default mode. Yeah, Jen, it's so true. And the reason is because your willpower drops, right? When you go into an emotional state, what actually happens is it fires up a part of the brain, which is, it's called colloquially your reptilian brain, right? Which basically it's a very ancient part of your brain it's kind of like the survival brain. So rational thought is taken away, Jen, and we're left with this kind of very ancient reptilian stubborn brain that all it cares about is survival, right? That's exactly what's happening, Jen. And that's the reason it's difficult. And this is the reason why trying to become the watcher is imperative. Trying to remind yourself that, you know what? I'm telling myself a story here. I need to break with this story because if I keep repeating the story over and over again, it always ends up in the same thing. It always ends up in the same behavior. Once you are able to better observe your patterns and you can see them as the watcher and you say, every time I do that, I do that. I think the awareness in itself helps you to lessen the power of those habits. Does that make sense? Anyway, I think that's it. If anyone's got any other questions, then let us know. Otherwise, hopefully you got some value in that podcast. As you can probably see, I'm trying to get really consistent with the podcast, guys. I think it's a great medium for us to be able to kind of deliver some value, of course, some coaching and some training, and then be able to have a conversation straight after that. All right. Happy Wednesday to Team UK, Team US, Team Canada. And to those of you who are in Australia, I hope you have a beautiful start to your day. I appreciate you guys. Please, by the way, if you're a client of ours and you still haven't rated the podcast, please, it literally takes 1 minute. All you do is go over to Apple Podcasts, you click the podcast, you scroll to the very bottom under episode 1 and you just leave a review. It helps me more than you know to take this podcast to the masses. On that note, guys, over and out. Have a beautiful afternoon, night, or morning, and I'll chat